2024 mid-year market update. You if you've been with us a while, you've seen a lot of these every year updates. Somebody asked me the other day, what are you going to be talking about? I said, well, basically, we just dust our notes off from 10 years ago and we start over again. We've seen lots of cycles in our industry, and we will continue to see cycles. And I think that what we're going to see today is that this is going to be a marked change in where we've been for the last couple of years. Interest rates started increasing in the spring of 22. Well, we're now in the summer of 24. So we've had now 2 full years of much higher interest rates. When we went from 3% to 7%, it was a real jolt to the market. And of course, that jolt has continued to shrink our sales, not just here again, but all across the country. But what's happening now is that as inventory grows, the sellers are becoming more negotiable. And the sharp increases in prices that we've been seeing, we're not seeing those in single family like we were. I mean, we're not going to see double-digit inflation increases this year, I don't think. We certainly doesn't look like from where we're sitting today. And condos, we're actually losing some value. So we'll see that in a few minutes as well. So we just kind of dig in. I love this slide. So we're showing it again here. You've seen this before, but this is a beautiful slide, not only of downtown Miami, but this is what downtown Fort Lauderdale, this is what the Palm Beaches are beginning to look like. We're a lot of high-rise buildings. We're going to continue to go higher and higher. So condominiums, of course, are all like mini country clubs now with the amenity packages and all the beautiful things that we're offering. But of course, the prices in those new buildings are exceeding $2, $3, $4 million as a starting point in many cases. Okay, this chart too we've seen before, but we updated it, as you see down at the bottom right corner, to June of 2024. All these other years are the first week of January of each one of these years. And as you can see in the orange, that was the decade where we had interest rates from 10 to 18%. Many of us lived through that period. You kind of look back into thinking, well, who in the world got a mortgage at 14, 15%? But a lot of people did. And then when you get into the blue lines or the blue columns, those were the more normal rates for historical rates, 6 to 7% rates. And then the green bars is when we got into the 3 to 4% range. And of course, during that period, certainly in 21 will always be the period that we see right there, that little spot in 21, where interest rates dropped in January to 2.7%. Many people rushed out to borrow money and buy a lot of real estate, which drove up our prices, significant increases in value during that period. And now, of course, you see over here, we're back into this 6 to 7% range. Now, what we're hearing and what we're hoping is that this rate will begin to trend down, hopefully in September. So that's just basically 5-6 weeks from now. Of course, the Fed makes their decisions, as the market moves, as inflation, improves, which it has. We're all encouraged from the media reports, at least, that we're going to see a reduction in that, which if we can get these rates here back down into this 5 to 6% range, then that'll open up a lot more buying. But I think a lot of people are just on the sideline right now watching to see what's going to happen to these interest rates. So interest rates have really been the major motivator in slowing our sales this last couple of years. Okay, again, we've looked at this so many times, but we cannot look at it enough, because this is what we talked with our sellers about. And when the rates today are 7.5%, we have eroded the borrower's borrowing power by 40%. So instead of being able to borrow $1 million at 3%, which we could just 2.5 years ago, the rate, that same mortgage today is 7.5%, which is clearly 60+% higher as a payment, almost $7,000 a month versus $4,200 a month back here. And so most people can't just make another 70% payment or 60% higher payment when their rates are in these 7% ranges. So you just follow this diagonal line down until you get to a point that you can afford and say, here's the interest rate at 7.5%. You run back over here. Instead of being able to borrow $1 million, you can now borrow $600,000. So that's basically what we've all been living with. And, most people still get a mortgage. A high percentage of our sales are cash. About 46% is what we're running right now in our company. And the county is probably a little bit lower than that. But we have still many opportunities for people to get mortgages. But a lot of those people are saying, I want to wait until the rates come down. All right, and we've seen this before too. The reason people are coming here, those 8 green states are the states that have no state income tax. All of these states are still doing very well, primarily, well, not primarily, included in great weather and great opportunities. In a place like Florida, you not only have all those opportunities, but you also don't pay any state income tax. And of course, this shows where movement has happened. All the blue states in the Northeast are losing population. A lot of those people are pouring into the South, and so you see, the green and the gold there, orange there. That is where we're getting a lot of concentration of the U.S. population into our southeastern area. Then, the foreign buyer. We have not been very kind to the foreign buyers with our exchange rates because it's been very tough for many of these countries. And you see, we're getting balance in a lot of countries. Poor Argentina, we still kind of point to them because their inflation is still pretty much out of control. Brazil is up 15% due to inflation against the U.S. dollar. But you see that our international buyers are coming back. And we don't have the number of international buyers we had pre-COVID, but we still have a significant number of international buyers compared to the rest of the country. Okay, this graph here, as you've heard me say before, is the most important graph in our industry. This is overlaying the median price with the months of supply. And we know from watching this for a lot of years, when the months of supply get up, this is single family, when the months of supply get up into these high ranges of 15, 18, 24 months of inventory like we had during the recession back in 08. And I'm kind of hanging on to this 08 period in these graphs. And even though that's 16 years ago, it reminds us what can happen when we let inflation get out of control. And so what happened back then was that, our median price of a house went up to $373,000 in 07. And then it fell to $150,000 by 2011. So in that 4-year period, we lost about 60% of the value of a single family home in Miami-Dade County. And then we started our little path working up and up and up and up and up until we got up to December of 2019, just pre-COVID. We had gotten back to where we were in 2007. So it took us 13 years to regain the value that we had lost during that period. But you see what caused all this to happen was a reduction in price. These high months of inventory here, when we get past this 6 to 9 months of optimum inventory, we know that prices are going to, at some point, have to fall, or else inventory will just totally, get higher and higher. So as we started dropping prices back in this period, we saw the number of months of supply dropping. And this black line here is the 6-month mark. And so all these bars below that are less than 6 months of inventory. This is where we want the market all the time. If we can stay below 6 months here, right at 6 months, even up to 9 months, we have happy sellers, happy buyers. Everybody's getting a fair deal. But then when inventory starts growing again, prices start softening again. Now, not softening, but certainly leveling off. And as you see right here, as this inventory started growing, you see how the median price started leveling off at this point. And then COVID was like a huge boost to the industry. I mean, we just almost shot straight up because everybody was relocating, moving in every direction. And of course, Florida was the beneficiary, a big beneficiary of that during that period. So now we have gone to inventories here in a month or two, less than 2 months, all this period here in 2021. This is when money was cheap. Inventory got very, very low. People were just paying whatever they had to pay to get a home wherever they wanted to move. And then when the rates started going up in 2022, in the spring of 22, you can see when the rates started going up, our months of supply started increasing. And then we had a little break and optimism happened here in 23. So inventory dropped, prices kept going up. Certainly during this time, we were not delivering new construction like we had been able to deliver for the last many decades. So the whole country was short, especially of brand new single family inventory. So by March of 24, just a few months ago this year, the median price was $650,000. It's inched up a little bit more in these last 3 months to $665,000. But you see this increase in value is really beginning to slow. So I don't have any concerns or qualms about telling a seller today that you may have reached your peak price for a while. So, if you're waiting for prices to continue to get higher and higher, there will be cases where that will happen. But in most cases, you're going to see this slower growth, and hopefully this will stay in the 5% range or even lower increases per year. Inventory is now back up to about 5 months, which is a good thing. We'd like this inventory to get a little bit higher just to keep a watch on this pricing here. So this is all single family, and now this one is all condo. You see a little bit different story, and I'll just go straight to it. You see where the median price has dropped from 448,000 3 months ago to 419,000 today. This is probably going to continue to happen. And again, it's all back to supply and demand. We just went through all this with single family, but in condos, we were at 3 years of supply back here. Prices dropped from 265,000 in March of 2007 to January of 2011. We had dropped $92,000. The median price of a condominium in Miami-Dade County during that period dropped 65%. I see these numbers. We lived through that period, but it's still hard to believe that we actually, in that 4 year period, had that kind of a drop. And it really was not even 4 years. It was, about, 3.5 years. And, but same thing with condo. We started our little path back up again, trudging along, and then it kind of levels off a little bit as the inventory starts growing again. And then the COVID came and woof, we lost all the inventory again. So we're down here in this month or two of supply. 21 will be the banner year for sales for a long, long time because we were just giving such cheap money out. And then in 22, interest rates started increasing. Fed started increasing those rates. And so inventory started growing, continued to grow. And now we're going to see much more growth because now for a lot of condominium owners with the new assessments that they're seeing in some of the older buildings, with the insurance cost and with the need to increase reserves, we're going to see values probably continue to soften. The new buildings obviously will fare much better. I think we need to be very careful with buildings that are in excess of 30 years old. A lot of those buildings have done great in keeping their buildings maintained, but some of them haven't done such a good job. And this is where we're going to start seeing a difference in price because the consumer, the lenders, the appraisers, everyone is going to be focused on how well we're maintaining those buildings. Condominiums are here to stay. It's still 60% of our total sales against single family home. We have nowhere left to build single family homes. So I think we will continue to see the condominium form of ownership being very favorable. A lot of people enjoy that and will continue to do that. But pricing is definitely going to be impacted by the assessments, insurance cost, and all the other factors that we've already talked about. Okay, again, you've seen this before too, our first 100-story building. So this just kind of reinforces what I just said, that we're going to continue to see a healthy appetite for our very, wonderful, large number of units coming to market. We probably have more condos, brand new condos for sale than anywhere else in the world right now. And of course, the Mandarin, we've talked about that before as well, where this building was built 24 years ago, and now they're going to tear it down and build a new building that's basically twice as tall as the old Mandarin, with an adjacent Mandarin residences with an almost 80-story condominium building with prices that are significantly higher on Brickell Key. I think if you work on Brickell Key or you live on Brickell Key, I think all of Brickell Key probably is undervalued today. I think it has been for a long time. I think with all this new growth and certainly with the new Mandarin residences selling at prices that will be much, much higher than what's normally seen on Brickell Key, there are probably some good opportunities over there to buy on Brickell Key right now. Okay, the bridge, I mean, everybody knows about the bridge, but this is bringing a lot of new excitement to the downtown Miami area and the overall market now. So we have the overall market for Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. So I'm going to kind of rush through this. I'm going to spend a little time on the very first ones, but then I'll let you go back later and look at some of the local graphs so you can use the ones that are more important to you or the most important to you in the various neighborhoods where you're working. But as you look at the overall market, so these are all single-family homes. So every single-family home in Miami-Dade County, you see on the top left corner there, had a 40% increase in inventory over this last 12 months. So this is from June of last year, June 30th of 23 versus June 30th of 24, 40% more inventory. Now, that sounds really bad because that's a lot of inventory at one time, but we needed this inventory. We still need more inventory. But then sales also are just barely above where we were a year ago, 1% increase in sales. The supply is going from 2.7 months to 3.9 months, still very, very low. We want that supply number for the overall market to be somewhere between 6 to 9 months. And we've been at these 2 and 3 month levels for way too long, which has continued to push up the value of a property. And then, of course, the median price, we talked about that a minute ago, was up into the $655,000 range now. Broward County, similar, except in Broward and Palm Beach, you see that sales are down. So 63% inventory in Broward, 46% increase in inventory in Palm Beach. But in both cases, we're selling fewer homes in Broward and Palm Beach. And supply is still very low in both cases, though. In the case of Broward County, we're at 3.6 months of supply. And Palm Beach County, 3.7 months of supply. Median price, Broward County has really done a great job of catching up with Dade over the last decade, really. Used to be a big difference in the median price in these two counties, but now the median price of a single-family home in Broward is essentially the same. And of course, Palm Beach has always been a little bit higher, but there they still are. $700,000 for the median price of a single-family home in Palm Beach. But you see a 7% increase in value last year for Dade County, 6% in Broward, and 8% in Palm Beach. 2 years ago, 21, 22, those periods, we were looking at 15, 16% increases for each one of these years. So it's good to see that tempering back down some. The overall market for condos. So those were all single families. So now we're going to look at condos. So Miami-Dade County condo inventory up 60%. Number of sales down 7%. Broward County inventory up 113%, more than twice the number of homes on the market and still growing. And inventory and the sales are down 14%. Palm Beach County, 88% increase in inventory, 13% decrease in sales. And then if you go back to the bottom left corner again, we're still, just getting to where we need to be, 7.8 months of supply. So I said earlier, we'd like to see 6 to 9 months of supply for all price ranges. Once we go over $1 million, we feel more comfortable with 12 to 18 months of supply. But in these cases, we're there now, 7.8 months of supply in Miami-Dade. And in Broward County, we're at 7 months of supply. In Palm Beach County, 5.7 months of supply. And in all cases, the median prices were still going up, but in lower single digits, 4% increase in Dade, 4% increase in Broward, 6% increase in Palm Beach. And again, these were all double digits just a couple of years ago. So this is good news, frankly, for the whole market, because we could not continue increasing prices over 1% a month at the rate we were going during COVID, especially in 2021. All right, so now the under $1 million market. Well, you think, well, gee, this market should be just zooming along. But these people are affected by the mortgage rates probably more than anybody else. So they've had a 49% increase in their inventory, 2% fewer sales. Inventory in Broward County up 81%, fewer sales. In Palm Beach County, 69% increase in inventory, fewer sales. And then you look at the months of supply down below, though, they're still in that 2.6 months in Dade County, 2.9 in Broward, and 3 month supply in Palm Beach. So, in all those cases, interest rates are affecting this particular graph. Okay, the under $1 million condo market is, again, showing large increases in inventory. Number of sales down 9%, 14%, 13%. Now, we had a huge boost in condos back in 21, and 22, continued through that period. But we had not seen increases in this price range condo for years. I mean, for probably a dozen or more years. And so a lot of that came all in 21 and early 22. And now we're probably going to start to give back a little bit of that. We're still seeing a median increase here in Dade of 4% over last year. Same thing in Broward, same thing in Palm Beach. But as we saw from that first graph in the overall condo market, the median price is coming down. Okay, the over $1 million market, again, increases, but sales are also increasing. This is where a lot of our buyers are today. $1 million to $2 million is really a sweet spot for condos. And of course, we'll see the very expensive ones here in a minute too. But we've had a 35% increase in sales in Broward County, 16% in Palm Beach County. The months of supply, though, are the things that we need to watch. Dade County, the months of supply are 8 months now. And we know at this price range, we can really handle higher than 9 months. So until this gets up to 12 to 15 months, there's probably no need for concern because people are looking for this type of product. But as you see those numbers, very few double digits anymore. Okay, this is the over $1 million condo market. We've seen some, kind of bouncing around there. Dade County median price is up 9% in the over $1 million market. Broward is flat and Palm Beach is actually down. So you have to kind of take each one of these percentages in relationship to a particular building. And with all of our housing, we talk about, macro looks at these numbers, but you need to zero into a neighborhood, zero into a building to really do the final fine tuning of what a property is worth and what the prospects look like for the future. Okay, market data by price segment. So now we're looking in the under $500,000 market, which we know there's just not much of that left. For single family homes, especially. Total sales are down 34%. We're at 1.6 months of inventory. The reason the sales are down is because we're just running out of inventory in this price range. And the same thing in condos. We have months of supply there, 6.1 months, and pretty much all the counties are there about 6 months of supply. But you see the inventory is growing dramatically, 86%. 129%, 99%, sales are falling. You don't want those graphs going in opposite directions. You look at 86% up and 10% down, 129% up, 16% down. Eventually our months of supply will grow to numbers that will really then begin to seriously affect price. So just kind of watch these in every one of these graphs. All right, let's get over here to a little bit higher. It's $1 million to $2 million. You see a 43% increase in inventory in Dade and Broward, 38% in Palm Beach. But the sales, Broward County are up 22% in this price range. So again, I mentioned earlier, this $1 million to $2 million price range is kind of a sweet spot for a lot of people right now. So, we'll probably continue to have good activity here. I think that the median price is going to be, one of the reasons they were selling more is because people are being more realistic on price. And a lot of this realism on price has all happened just in the last 3 or 4 months. So if you're not having that conversation with sellers today that have been on the market for a while, you really should point out some of this because, we're not going to see this appreciation like we had been accustomed to back in, again, 21, 22, early 22. And Palm Beach is actually median prices down 2%. Okay, then as you get a little bit higher, the sales now, this is, $1 million to $2 million for condos. Sales in the 8% are down 8% in Broward and Palm Beach, 8% in Dade, down 10% in Broward, and just basically flat in Palm Beach. And then as you go higher, again, this is continuing a solid price range in most of our markets. But as you see the median price there, and all of those cases are coming down at the bottom. And the reason we're making more sales is because the sellers are being more realistic on price. And then again here, price increases in the $2 to $3 million condo market. The increases are still in the single digits, low single digits, up 4%, up 2%, up 1%. And again, we can see more and more of this as we go across here. If you have questions, I'm going to show you the really high end here. If you have questions, we'll let you ask a couple of questions here in a minute. I don't want to keep everybody. We've already been here for 40 minutes, so I'm trying to shorten this to about 45 minutes if we can. The $10 million and higher market, excuse me, we're selling, as you look at the number of sales we're making, 32 sales versus 16. So we've had 100% increase in this price range. And Miami-Dade, Broward 33%, Palm Beach 11%. Median price though, other than Broward, median prices are coming down a little bit on the over $10 million market. Again, these are for single family homes. The reason we're seeing this good kind of solid activity is because we're drawing a lot of money here, and we all know that. It's in the papers every day. These major corporations that are moving literally thousands of people here at high-paying jobs. I mean, we are recasting the way our economy works, which is a big positive. I mean, obviously, all of our South Florida market was built on tourism, and we all have enjoyed that, continue to enjoy that, and we will always be a hospitality community. But at the same time now, we're drawing some large corporations. When you get Jeff Bezos and Ken Griffin and these kind of people moving to town and bringing their companies and their people with them, those are solid jobs with families, and it's good for our schools. It's good for everything that we do. The philanthropy now is showing up as well. Ken Griffin gave the largest gift to Baptist Health that's ever been received, $50 million for the neurological center. That was just a couple of months ago, and we're seeing others give maybe not $50 million, but significant gifts to our community. So we're very fortunate that the hard work that so many have put forth for the last decades to make this such a wonderful place to live is now not only paying off with great tourism, but now with solid neighborhoods and solid buildings, filled with people who are bringing great new business to our cities. $10 million and higher for condos. I mean, who ever thought we would have this many condos, 14 sales, during this last quarter, over $10 million for condos in Dade. Broward's not really into that too much, I guess, and Palm Beach doesn't have quite that level either, but we will continue, I think, to see these prices in Dade County from here forward. Okay, the rental market. And I know, yes.
Before we go any further, there was a question put in the chat about, would you mind taking a moment to talk about the condo market, referring to the SERS reports and reserves for older buildings?
Yes. We're seeing the oldest buildings. I mean, buildings that were built, 40, 50 years ago in choice places like on the beach or in locations that you can't find anymore. Those buildings have been very successfully moved to new developers, and we're seeing that already. Construction is underway in places in Brickell and others where buildings have been torn down, and now we're building brand new buildings. I think that we will continue to see that. Those are not easy transactions. I mean, you have to get a lot of people to agree, and then those people have to find places to go. But the good news is that many people made wise investments when they bought where they bought 20, 30 years ago, because those buildings have increased in value to the point now where the land is worth more than the combined condominium units. So the answer to the question, though, is that we will have assessments, and some of the buildings that are being publicized in the news right now are showing that buildings that have a couple of assessments or even more assessments, it's affecting the value significantly, because if you have to pay another $800 a month in assessment fees, then you're going to feel like, well, I'm not going to pay as much for this condominium. And so it does affect values. So that's something that I mentioned earlier. If we're looking at buildings that are more than 30 years old, we probably, we should definitely get the information from the homeowners association, provide that to the buyers, have honest discussions with the sellers about, what these costs are going to be in the future. So it's not going away, but neither is condo living going away. There are people that are buying into 50-year buildings that they know that, maybe in another 10 years, 15 years, the building will be torn down, but they see the value of what they're buying. And much of that value, or a greater percentage of that value now, is in the land that these buildings sit on. But this picture here we're looking at right now shows, this is Brickell Key. Brickell Key is a 44-acre island, basically a man-made island, back in the 30s. And look at it today. And just to kind of put that in perspective, Brickell Key, when Swire was building Brickell Key in 1979, for the first 33 acres on a 44-acre island, they purchased the first 33 acres for $17 million. So, to put that in perspective, Ken Griffin just paid you could swim basically across the water there from where we're looking to where he just bought on the waterfront to build a tower for his corporate office. He paid $363 million for 2.5 acres. So from 40 years ago, basically to the day, this is what's happened. So I think that even though some of these buildings will have to go through a lot of repairs and a lot of maintenance, long term, I think the owners will still be okay, but it definitely will impact our sales for people to live in some of these buildings that are looking for a long-term residence for the next 10 years. So if you're looking at an older building, just make sure that it's being maintained and the proper reserves are being set aside to continue to maintain it.
Ron, there was another question on that same topic about, do we know the penalties if they don't conduct a SERS report by December 31st of 2024? Right now, it seems unclear when the cutoff dates are with all of these new rules and what the penalties will be when these buildings inevitably don't get the work done in time. Have we heard anything about that?
Well, you have, these reports, the certifications, 30-year certification, 40-year certifications. It used to be 10-year certifications, and now we're working with a lot of buildings that are in 30, 40, 50-year certifications. I don't know all the penalties, but I know that our state is really focused on this, keenly focused on this, which is frankly a good thing, because so many of our buildings have had absentee owners that own the unit but were renting the unit. And when they were given the choice of either raising the fees to maintain the building better or not raise the fees, if they weren't living there, they just said, well, yeah, we don't raise the fee. Well, that was a mistake in retrospect. But if you see buildings where 50% of the owners are living in the buildings, those buildings generally are maintained better, have better reserves, and are now giving inspiration to the other absentee owners that they need to be doing the same thing for their buildings. I don't know if that answers that exactly, but.
Well, and Aniela piggybacked on what you were saying in the chat, just that you're absolutely right. And it's all about disclose. If you're buying or selling in a condo building, it's really important that you price with information on assessments in hand with the owner and provide that information to any buyers.
Yes. Yeah. Our job is to pass the information, not to necessarily, render an opinion. But we obviously work with these buildings every day, and we hear the stories and what's happening in these buildings. And so, it's a lot of it's kind of what's coming. So we want to be aware too, if they've already talked about a need for an assessment and it hasn't been ratified yet, but we know that it's probably coming. That's something we should tell. The seller should tell the buyer. Anything that affects value, we need to be disclosing. Okay, any other questions?
That was all for now.
Okay, all right. Well, the rental market, this has been tough for a lot of people who are not in a position to buy. We know that inventory is up. Median price is actually coming down a little bit, but what these graphs don't reflect is what's happened over the last 4 years. We did a little study the other day for Miami-Dade, looking at and Broward's going to be very similar. The median price of a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo built since 2000. So basically any building that's under 24 years old, and what those median prices have looked like for rent. If you went back pre-COVID, that rent for that, what I just described, 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, about 1,250 square feet, building that's less than 24 years old, those units were renting for $2,750 a month, $2,750 a month. Well, last year, when we kind of hit the peak of those rents, that $2,750 a month rent had risen to $4,100 a month. So when you start thinking about 4,100 times 12 months, almost $50,000 a year, then that's after tax, money. So, the median income in Dade County is probably a little over $50,000 now, but that's pretty much the average of what people make here, median of what people make here. So, so that has definitely been a challenge, but rentals are still very strong. I mean, single family homes. I mean, who thought we'd be renting single family homes at $40,000 a month in some cases? Not many of those, but some of those. But a lot of them, $5, $10, $15,000 a month. And so that's that. And then here, I'm not going to go into all these cities because it takes a while. And I've already passed the time I told you I was going to let you go. Obviously, Aventura, sales are down. The thing that you're going to find in every one of these communities, I mean, you look at the best communities we have, Coral Gables, Coral Gables this year is this last 6 months in 2024, the first 6 months of 2024 compared to the first 6 months of the prior 15 years. Coral Gables had the fewest sales they've had in 15 years. Now you say, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Well, it's not just Coral Gables, it's every city. So if you look at the entire county, I mean, you see it right here. The number of sales were down 13%, 21%, 11%, and for single family, Bal Harbor, these are condominiums in Bal Harbor, but their sales are actually up in the under $2 million market. But if you look at every one of these cities, pretty much everyone, whether it's Pinecrest or whether it's Fort Lauderdale or Palm Beach, wherever, we're recording some of the lowest numbers of sales that we have had in 15 years. So, and that's because interest rates, all the things we've already talked about. So don't be discouraged by that because, somebody said one time that, a low base is happiness because, from a low base, if we add percentage wise to a low base, then we're going to get some sharp increases in the following year. And I think that's where we are right now. I think for sellers today, they need to be very realistic on price. Buyers are going to begin to they're already getting more inventory to choose from. So I think that's a positive. And I think for our business, I mean, I know people in our business of, scrambling, looking for listings. And of course, that should be our number one goal as a company is to get the most listings that we can get right now. I mean, the summer months are always the kind of the quieter months, but as we get past Labor Day here in just a few weeks, we'll see a lot more activity in the marketplace. When it gets cold up north every year, people start flocking down. And so I think that we will have a lot of people who have been waiting for the presidential election to be passed, and a lot of reasons why it's very positive for buyers and for realtors and for sellers too. But sellers need to, I think, realize that we're not having the type of market that we had in 21 where we can continue raising prices every month. So with that, any other questions? It's getting close to 11 o'clock here.
Actually, Ron, we're up to date with all the questions.
Okay.
As we shared earlier, we have recorded this